Good morning. It's Sunday, December 4th. It's the day after the big U.S.-Netherlands soccer game, which the U.S. proceeded to lose by the score of 3-1. So now I want to talk about a touchy subject, affirmative action. There are two cases before the Supreme Court. One involves the University of North Carolina, which is a public institution and runs under a different set of rules with respect to affirmative action than does the other school, Harvard, which is a private institution. There are state laws that do not apply to private institutions, but do apply to the University of North Carolina. Now, affirmative action cases have won out in the Supreme Court in the past couple of years, but with this court, with this conservative court, I'm not sure that affirmative action will stand up this year in this session. Affirmative action was put into place to benefit minorities and people who are less fortunate than others, and to sort of equalize the educational picture around the country. So the main thing that was put forward when they decided to go with affirmative action was that diversity enhances education, and that students of different backgrounds benefit from learning from one another. But we're not sure that that really works. And that's what members of this conservative court, this six-justice conservative bloc, do not believe that that notion is actually true. And it questioned how it could be subjected to meaningful judicial scrutiny. So if you're looking at diversity in colleges and looking at the way that colleges, North Carolina in this case and Harvard in this case, use the actions to create diversity at their schools, you find different methodologies. And Harvard has been known to discriminate against Asian applicants, not because of their grades, but because of their personality. That is a particularly just subjective. But I have to look at somebody who has written papers and got great grades and everything, but when I meet them personally, I say they're not fit for Harvard. I don't know that that should stand up too well. So in any event, this is a very, very tricky subject. I'm not 100% in favor of affirmative action anyhow. Because I remember that when I went to school at City College, you had an entrance exam, and you had to pass that entrance exam or you had to have very high grades. And then they started messing around with all of that. And so the CCNY Engineering School, which was once number 3 in the country, is now number 140 because of the changes to the educational requirements to get into that school. And all of those were done for the reasons of diversity and allowing a lesser quality student into the programs. And then the programs had to be tailored to make sure that those kids didn't flunk out. But that's totally insane. You want to give people the best education you can possibly give them. And if a person can't stand up to the stress of learning at a higher level, then they shouldn't be. But I will say one thing, and I will say this over and over again. The problem is not at the university level. The problem is at the lower levels. Because if we do not have an equal educational system all around the country, then affirmative action is almost a meaningless situation. When you have states that have poor teachers and poorly paid teachers teaching poor children who can't get additional learning from somewhere, then you have a poor educational system. And watering down the entrance examination criteria is wrong. It's totally wrong. So affirmative action, which I think was a good idea, but has failed. It really has failed. Not because of the actions itself, not because of the diversity that it was attempting to bring forward, but because of the backgrounds of the people who are applying it. You cannot have a set of criteria to get into a particular school if everybody around the country is not capable of reaching that criteria because of things that are beyond their control. If you're unlucky enough to grow up in a place like Mississippi, where the teaching quality is poor and the pay for those teachers is even poorer, then you don't have much chance. You don't have much chance. And that, unfortunately, is happening all around this country. So yes, we have affirmative action, and that's designed to allow blacks and whites and greens to get into colleges. But you have to take into account the background of these people, these students. You know, when you have poor parents and you're living in a poor neighborhood, those parents are working 2 jobs. They cannot pay that much attention to the kids. And on top of that, you've got educational systems that suck, that are not quality educational systems. So there's 3 strikes against a lot of these people who affirmative action is supposed to help. But it's not going to help them in any way, shape, or form if they haven't got the background. And then when those people, like the Asians, for instance, who work very, very hard, much harder than most of the students, are denied access because they're Asian, how does that sit? That doesn't sit very well for this affirmative action stuff. So we're going to go through the exercise, and it's probably going to be overturned by the Supreme Court. There will be no more affirmative action in this Supreme Court. Even though Chief Justice Roberts has taken a sort of moderate, middling position and is going to try, from what I read, to water down whatever decision the court comes to. But there's a very good chance that it's going to disappear. And I don't know what it can be replaced. I don't know what will replace affirmative action that makes getting into colleges fair. And I think I've said many times in the educational world that searching for the proper institution for your children is a job that parents have to be qualified to do, or they have to get good advice on how to do it. And many parents can't. And that's why we have astronomical tuitions for these schools. Astronomical. When a state school is half the price and probably almost as good as a private institution. So I leave you with that. Affirmative action on the brink of disaster. And the Supreme Court will probably make that happen. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.